Good evening, my friends. Remove this from studio. Thank you, moderators, for being in there. Beautiful night. I've been busy entertaining guests, having a grand old time. Big John and Cole were here earlier. Let's see. All right, we already got 1,000 people in the chat. That's excellent. Excellent. Please don't try to anticipate me, guys. Over and over, you guys thought you knew the trajectory of my presentations, and you were surprised. All right. Sound is good. Thank you, Squirrel Sniper. Grindle Dark, how you doing, bro? Met him a few times. Terrance Howard's on the menu. Had no intention of doing this video. You guys basically backed me up into a corner. I did a post a few days ago about my thoughts on the whole Terrance Howard deal. I watched a few clips here and there. Several of my little triggers popped up, and many people in the community, in my own community, kind of called me on it. Said, "Hey, man, what do you really find wrong about this guy?" But that's not what induced me to react. I don't live a reactive lifestyle. You guys already know that. I'm making things happen. I'm moving forward. I'm creating my own existence. I am writing the text of my own reality tunnel. I'm calling my shots. I'm anticipating. I'm telling you in advance the moves I'm making in my life. I make those moves and you see what follows. This has been going on for 4.5 years. So for me to react is a big deal for me. It's not a loss of face, but it is interesting to me that I rarely allow peer pressure to mold my behavior. And that's exactly what happened. But it didn't come from my community. It came from an army of unknown accounts that I literally spent a long time on Twitter and on YouTube blocking. I've never seen these names. You guys know I'm very engaged in my chat, in my comment sections daily. So many people just automatically assaulted both of my, and they were all in defense of Terrance Howard. No one I've ever called out, no one I've ever drawn attention to has ever caused such a thing. Calling out Graham Hancock, Billy Carson. Oh, we'll be talking about him here in this video. But never before have I seen this so vehemently. Perhaps some of them were bots. A lot of them were real personalities. You could feel the emotion. Yeah, triggered by a criticism of someone who is regarded highly. So we need to get to the bottom of that. We need to figure out why this individual and what he's talking about now is so polarizing. I'm going to give you the good, the real good, because I found it. But I'm also going to give you the suspicious. And I'm going to give you the bad. This presentation is going to be like a roller coaster, because that's what it was for me. The deeper I dove into this new rabbit hole, because it is. I don't care who the man is. Any personality, no matter how famous they are in the past, is suddenly thrust to the front of the stage all over social media, mainstream and alt media. Then there's something going on. So let's get to the bottom of it. Let's do it. You guys know I'm going to go as deep as possible. I got a good shovel. I'm not worried about that rabbit hole. I don't know about you guys, but this coffee tastes great. All right. Very polarizing, this individual here. All right, 1,400 people in the chat. I believe I can start. I only have 3 or 4 slides to show you guys. It's not necessary to show, it's really just not necessary to go into any type of presentation like that. But Terrance Howard is a very accomplished individual. We all know that. You don't do, I misspoke earlier. I did not realize the extent of his acting career. I had no idea. That too was a rabbit hole. This man, who is literally 4 years older than me, 5 years old, maybe 4.5 years older than I am, he's been in 65 or 66 different movies. That's a lot. That's a hell of a career. That takes a prodigious amount of time. Movies aren't something you slip into and slip out of. That's a lot of time in your life. 65, 66 movies. But that's not all. Terrance Howard was also, and still is, in 28 different television shows. Didn't know that either. Because I just wasn't looking. I wasn't interested in this individual. But current events have kindly, made me pretty interested. So this might be a long presentation. I don't know, 2 hours to get all this out. But Sunday, we're going even deeper. You're going to learn a whole lot in this video you've never heard before. It's not on any other Terrance Howard videos. I've been checking. So at the end of this video, I'm going to make an announcement. Tell you something pretty interesting about this guy. And we're going to talk about it with David Nino Rodriguez on Sunday. But until then, we have a ride to catch. Because this is going to go deep. The man wasn't just in 65 different movies and 28 television shows, basically acting in over 60 different episodes of these television shows. Some of them are series. You guys, many of you have seen Empire. The man released a music video, and he's been in 2, maybe 3 Broadway productions. All of this takes a long time. It's a lot of energy, a lot of training, a lot of scripts. So the only point I'm making here was 65 movies, 28 TV shows with over 60 episode appearances, Broadway music video. The only point I'm making is that Terrance Howard is a very good actor, and I won't take anything from that at all. So I'm going to call Mr. Howard charming, but I'm going to reserve the true meaning of that statement till the end of this video. He first started making public appearances in 2015 in his science pursuits. Prior to that, he had filed some patents. We'll talk about those in a minute too. 2015 and 2019 again. There was like a 4-year period where he just kind of went silent and wasn't very popular talking about these things, continued with his acting career, Empire, stuff like that. Just nothing really resurfaced after 2015 on mainstream scale. But in 2019, Terrance Howard resurfaced again in mainstream media, explaining his scientific theories, scientific discoveries. Very interesting. He has no scientific background. But this doesn't make him wrong. Like I said, this is an interesting rabbit hole. So it's best off to search for commonalities, things that we agree with or things that I agree with. I know many of you value my opinion, because you know that in the exposition of so much data over the past, I have given you so much information that you have found value in it. You have found value not only in my presentations, but in my opinions about the collation of data, what it means to us, what it means to me in the personal. So I want to itemize some of the things that I find of value, things that were really interesting. We're only sticking with the only thing we're looking at is the 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast with Terrance Howard. There are many other podcasts with Terrance Howard. This is the only one I'm focused on right now. So Mr. Howard made a really interesting statement. Man, my chat's moving. I removed the chat filter, guys, to 10 seconds from 60. So I'm going to need emails from my moderators because I can't follow the chat if you guys aren't liking that. Or if it's okay. If you guys like it, it's cool. You guys, I need my moderators to let me know. Or you can let me know on Telegram because I've been more involved in that or trying to lately. I'm going to need to know somewhere other than this chat feed right here. But it's a 10-second. I can remove the 10 seconds if you got me one too. So y'all just let me know. So anyway, the man said something very compelling. Can't take that away from him. If you're going to be incisive, then you've got to also give a man his props. Now, why somebody says something is a totally different matter. We'll get to that later. Terrance Howard said, we are all just one great being. The universe is probably just one cell inside some super organism. We are all God. That's what Jesus was talking about. Everything is a piece of God. All right. I agree to that. As a matter of fact, that's one of the tenets of Archaix research. I have often said exactly that. I'm not saying he borrowed my words. I'm not even saying he's ever even heard or listened to Archaix. I am saying that we are in absolute agreement. 100%. He also said that reality itself behaves like a toroidal field. And it's always been in my position in Archaix to tell you guys that yes, the simulacrum operates on the principles of the toroidal field. Even our world. Yeah. I mean, I would not even be surprised to find out the plane of our world folds inward at the North Pole, like is suggested by some Arctic explorers in the 1895, 1897 publishing world. Wouldn't even be surprised. Now, the toroidal field nature, though, is merely a three-dimensional image of pure coding. Remember, I'm a simulationist. As a simulationist, I understand that everything is code. Everything's codified. Everything is sequences of code to give us this perceivable reality, not an actual reality. So Terrance makes good argument that dark matter was invented by science simply because they needed a medium for which light to travel through and all these things, because priorly they had removed from scientific parlance the concept of ether. Again, Terrance Howard gets an A from me. He is absolutely correct. Dark matter's stupid. It's dumb. It was on the scientific table from the beginning about ether, the fifth element. And it was removed, I believe, 1905 or so. I believe it was Einstein's, whatever it was. So many correlates here, it's amazing. Einstein worked in the patent office. Many people believe that Einstein stole a lot of the ideas that were in the patent office, that came across the patent office, and he put together his theory of general relativity. And it wasn't his own. As a matter of fact, there's compelling research that Einstein wasn't even a genius. But that's neither here nor there. There's some interesting correlates here between Terrance Howard and Einstein's history. I'm not talking about Einstein himself. So Terrance Howard shows in really good computer graphics the negative spaces between solids on a plane using the geometrical flower of life. Now, the flower of life is in 2 dimensions on a flat plane. But when 3-dimensional shapes of the flower of life are put in juxtaposition, it's amazing what he showed. Terrance Howard showed some stuff for which you guys have seen mathematically expressed in Archaix. This was amazing to me to see this on Joe Rogan. When he took the flower of life and showed it as a 3-dimensional expression instead of a 2D flat plane image, when he showed the combination of 4 or 6 or 12 bubbles, it's not the bubbles which represent the physical world that have any meaning whatsoever. It is the negative spaces between them that form these points in these incredible images. These negative spaces are basically where all the magic happens. Let me get to that and why it's so profound. So it's the negative space which contains all the generative force. And this I agree with. As I have demonstrated, we are in a photo negative of a real reality. What I have shown in my mathematical exercises in Archaix is exactly what he showed in the 3-dimensional distribution of the negative spaces between different groupings of solids. So a working model demonstrating how the solids produce the negative space is very compelling. And Terrance then proceeds to explain that magnetism and electricity are operable in the negative space. And this is what moves the solid world. This model is a 3-dimensional way of showing that all true activity in the realm is in the negative spaces. This pull and this push and this pull. Now, this aligns nicely with those theorists, such as myself, who claim that we exist on the other side of a real reality, that our mathematics is actually an anti-arithmetic, that we are not in the real universe, that we exist right now in the photo negative of a real reality, which is somewhere else. What I have shown this in the Archaix paradox, matter of fact, I've done that video twice. In the Archaix paradox, I have shown the number 2178 and how the collapse sequencing that I've demonstrated on my channel also shows that our arithmetic collapses into this negative space, and only a very small proportion of the actual mathematical construct is even truly here. So I'm giving him props for the demonstration. Whether it's his, I don't know, but we're going to get to that. But it is very compelling, and he got my attention with that. So he said something else that kind of caught my attention. It probably caught any of my Archaix veterans listening the whole 3 hours. You probably would have heard him say too, that electricity is 137 times stronger than the effects of gravity. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That's not him making up. He's just citing physicists. That's okay. But 137 point something we already know is the fine structure constant. It is a part of the Phoenix phenomenon. So Terrance Howard claims that the deeper humans in the past that have gone underground, they suffer from a different pressure system under there. And after long exposure to that pressure system, their skulls get bigger, their eyes get bigger, their skin grays out. Precisely the model that I have shown in Archaix many times. The little alien ET grays that the Ancient Aliens franchise and crowd are always saying coming from vehicles from space and all that. No. They come from underground. This has been my position since my very first video. So I was pretty shaken up when I heard him say that, because he was talking about pressure systems and all that. I haven't heard him say anything about vapor canopy, but then again, he's not really aware of truther community concepts. And we'll get to that too, because he tried. He tried on Joe Rogan to basically list several topics for which he has no knowledge. I mean, he cited his sources, Billy Carson. Come on. Oh my God. So, yeah. If I could convey to Terrance Howard how ridiculous it is to cite Billy Carson as a source for historical information, I would slap the shit out of myself just to get him to pay attention. I would take one for the team just to get him to listen to me for about 3 minutes, and then he can make up his own opinion. But we're going through the good right now. We're going through the things that were very agreeable in the deal. Let me check my chat. Yeah. Okay, we're still moving good. Yeah. So definitely not taking anything from the man. He truly believes what he's saying. That's evident. Now, Terrance's breakdown of the relationship between light, color, sound, as he explains them in the periodic table, is not his discovery, guys. It's not his discovery by a long shot. I'm not quite clear, because Terrance Howard is very intelligent. I don't know if his eloquence matches his intelligence. Yeah, I'm having a problem with that one, but he's very intelligent. However, he seems to cross over into the realm of speaking about things without clearly explaining where he got them from, which leads the listener to conclude that, oh, Terrance Howard's a genius. Listen to what he came up with. And while he has come up with some pretty compelling things, much of what came out of his mouth has already been published by many prior individuals. That doesn't take away from his message. It just means that, like myself, with a bibliography now of over 1,500 nonfiction reference works that I have cited, we stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of predecessors who have come and gone with the very research that now falls from our lips. You guys know I'm really big on citing sources, so I kind of get offended when I see somebody just going over it. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to impugn him for it. Now, yeah, this breakdown on light, color, sound, yeah, on the periodic table and all that, other physicists have made these associations. We kind of understand that our reality is like a light band, and the lower the vibration is the physical world. It gets higher and higher into color and music, sound, and then optics. We get that. This is a very old model. You know, our reality is made up of light, of differing frequencies that create colors and sounds, and that these are perceived as solids on the lower bandwidths. So this is another reason, though, that I'm a simulationist. I have no problem with this entire reality being a perceived existence, not an actual one. Everything is light. Light at different frequencies becomes sound, becomes color, becomes what we perceive to be physical objects until darkness. There is no light. So, and of course, when anything in the light spectrum is magnified, almost supraluminally, when we go super magnification, we find out that light itself comes apart into tiny little bits of oscillating fields of little lights and nothing in between them. So, to me, we live in a construct. It is made up of light. The light takes on many forms. But this is already published and understood long before myself or Terrance Howard were even born. So he didn't discover this. In the end, Terrance Howard is merely using physical models to explain the operations of phenomena, which to me are just coded protocols. In Mr. Howard's, basically his model is still a model of the physical world. We're going to go deeper with this. I'm going to explain why it's very important to understand what really just happened with Mr. Howard's material being exploded onto the scene. Yeah, at least 10 million people have listened to all these presentations. So we have an individual who's now been listened to by over 10 million, spread across all these platforms and all these videos, not just Joe Rogan. All of a sudden, he's saying the right things. Yeah, he's a 55-year-old. Yeah, he's a normal guy. He smokes cigarettes. Totally normal. He took a shot at antibiotics. Yeah, yes, he did. And did a demonstration, a little homeopathic demonstration on deal, showing it was part of his routine. Yeah, man, the public eats that up. Yeah, he pulled the right chords. Good musician. Talks really good about his wife. Now, there is a real tumultuous history with females in the past, but we can forgive him for that. Hell, I got a tumultuous history with that. At least one little incident when I was 17 years old, so we can forgive him of that. But he spoke very highly of his wife concerning 3 or 4 different aspects of his life. Yeah, man, a female has saved him physically. This draws on the heartstrings. People hear that. He's saying the right things. Talking about fasting, he's saying things that people want to hear, whether they do these practices or not. He admits that we need some type of vice. Great for the human condition. We all have a vice. We all have that little secret that turns us on that we don't want to tell nobody about. He hits the right chords, makes it all acceptable. A really good conditioning method to get us to accept anything else he has to say. So he admits Alan Watts was one of his personal heroes. And then Joe Rogan says, why? And he says, well, I mean, shoot, man, the guy's just human. He had a wife and he had a girlfriend all the way to the day he died. He died with his girlfriend. So this is what he said. A lot of guys listened to him. I'm pretty sure a lot of females weren't too appreciative of that statement, but he did get points for his prior statements about his wife. So we're hearing a lot of things that just make him so human, and people resonate with that. So, some talk of how the most successful people are also the most effed up. He and Joe Rogan went back and forth about this, talking about some of the most successful people in the world have real bad idiosyncrasies or real dark pasts. So I'm listening to this, and maybe I'm just too suspicious. Maybe Jason still has this prevailing criminal mind from being in prison 26 years. Maybe I'm reading too much into the field, but I almost sense there's a narrative being built where we're going to be conditioned to forgive many people in high places for the evil that they're about to be exposed of doing. I'm just seeing it. It's not just this. It's many podcasts. It's many personalities. It's many hints in social media and in alt media. The little things I'm picking up in the field that, we're going to forgive and let bygones be bygones. And who knows, maybe the Epstein list is going to be published and verified. I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm seeing a lot of this. And when I heard them talking like this openly, it kind of triggered that. But I can admit to you right now, I could be just barking up a tree. I've been known to do that before. All right. My chat's getting away from me. All right. Let's see. So anyway, just wondered. That kind of got me, man. But I will say he's hitting all the chords. Listen, Terrance Howard specifically was very critical of the elite. He was very critical of bankers, our economic and monetary system. We all want to hear that. Everybody wants to hear that. He was critical of politicians. And this is all what people want to hear. So that doesn't make him deceptive. It doesn't make him a bad fellow. I'm merely laying the ground for coming arguments I'm going to make in this presentation. You need to decide for yourself where all this goes. And you can also watch David Nino and I unravel some more stuff that I didn't really feel I wanted to put in this video. We'll get to that. So his position on the vax is what most people want to hear. Talk of the vax damage spike proteins. It's an excellent way to garner public trust while shoving a false model of a physical world and a physical space onto the people. This is where I'm going with this. It was a year ago, I was predicting, over a year ago, right here on Archaix, I was predicting that a part of the second seal, fear porn, was going to be the actual public disclosure of the vax damage, COVID-19, how MSM and alt media we're going to together start revealing all the facts that yes, it was a conspiracy. Yes, it was. Yes, it is hurting people. Yes, they did cover up information about. I mean, even in the Joe Rogan podcast, he openly talked about vax damage and ivermectin. Both of them were mentioned in the podcast. It's exactly what people want to hear. Exactly. So, hell, the sheer number of views that he got in talking about that is literally a fulfillment to my prediction a year ago. But if it's a psyop, if all this is psyop, the psyop is sophisticated in that the elite need this NASA paradigm to continue. Excuse me. And that's exactly what this Joe Rogan interview was all about. Oh, I'm going to show it to you. The elite need the perpetuation of the NASA paradigm to continue because it still funds all their operations. Huge amount of money goes to NASA. But NASA's not doing anything that they're telling us. All that's smoke and mirrors. We already know. Even SpaceX ain't doing anything up there. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's the redistribution of wealth for whatever clandestine purposes they need. But we have here Terrance Howard, who is literally endorsing NASA, as I'm going to show, while promoting a whole new paradigm that overturns a major figurehead who also supports NASA. Yeah, who's no longer effective because we all call bullshit on him. Remember, I've told you guys in the past, when the elite are going to move, they're going to remove puppets that are no longer of great facilitation, puppets that are no longer of utility. They remove them and they replace them with puppets the people have faith in. We're going to get to that. I am describing the unfolding of a psyop. These people play the long game. So it doesn't make Terrance Howard, got to understand, it doesn't make him not an intelligent individual. And in the execution of psyops, often the major players don't even quite understand the role that they're playing until they're so far in it, they can't turn back. They have already accepted all the benefits, and now they got to roll with it. Yeah, guys. Not everybody signs the contract at the beginning. Some find themselves in an amazing situation, and then the contract is presented when they're in the position of losing everything. So this is what we have here. He strikes all the right chords, guys. Anti-government, he said that twice. His anti-government stance is something everybody wants to hear. He even really interesting, he interrupted Joe Rogan toward the end of the video and said, "Hey man, I want to ask you something," which was really compelling. Listen, guys, this was a psychological technique and it's very effective. The entire podcast, Joe Rogan is asking questions. The entire podcast, Terrance Howard is answering them and giving dissertations. At the end, as Joe Rogan is summing everything up, he is interrupted by Terrance Howard, who now has a question. Pattern break. Everybody pays attention. In that small moment that followed, Terrance sounds very, very genuine, and maybe he was, but he was asking Joe Rogan about when people make decisions, he mentioned dignity and integrity, and what would those lead one to do in certain situations? I don't have the type of memory that can recall what the situation was they're talking about, but he specifically said dignity and integrity would lead one to certain situations. He was asking Joe Rogan something. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that was genius what you just did. That was beyond the ordinary modicum of intelligence of the masses. That was a master move. Commanded attention, turned it back on Joe Rogan, and the moral question literally put him on a pedestal, like a guru. Like, damn man, you must be a really good soul to have even considered such a question. Again, Jason may be barking up a tree. We'll see. We will see. So a lot of good things he said. A lot of good stuff, guys. A lot of things I was very impressed with. And there's still some more. The negative spaces, I don't know yet because I'm going to show you where he got most of his education from. But I went kind of deep on him, and it's just one of those weird sinks in history, guys. It's one of those things that it's just one of those weird things, guys, because two of the books that educated this man, I read in prison, and I was sent these books by the author. Yeah. This is another weird crossover. Not even Dawn, who is in the chat, knows that one of these books heavily cites Rudolf Steiner. I read this book in prison. I'm going to show you the book on the screen. The man, I believe he's still alive, but the man that sent these two books to me also wrote me a letter. His name is Dale Pond. He is the author. His books are fantastic. And almost everything that came out of Terrance Howard's mouth in that video came out of these two books. So, it's interesting, guys. When you're real well read, you recognize when people are talking, you know where that material came from. It's like, whoa. Yeah, man, I had to hold my underwear up. Like, what? I'm still listening to him. I can't even believe it. I got to go to the bathroom. I got to come back. I got to make a cup of coffee. Turn it off. Listen to it again. Yeah, it's just, I was having all kinds of aha moments. Like, wow, man, I'm resonating with this because I've read it. I've researched it. A lot of this is in my notes. Yeah. So, yeah, it's awesome. So, for a little levity, we want to be fair. I've spoken highly of him. He is intelligent. I've spoken highly of him, but he's saying all the right things. I've spoken highly of him about his research, about the negative spaces that in three-dimensional geometry, using the tree of life, or whatever little two-dimensional chart he had on the flower of life, I'm going to say that it's profound. I don't know if it's his, but it is profound if it is. And yet, if it is his, I'm going to say he would have never come up with this concept had he not studied Dale Pond, who studied not only Rudolf Steiner, but John Keeley, who studied Walter Russell. All these men are responsible for understanding the architecture of our reality, and they laid it out in so many different ways and provided so many beautiful charts to explain it. Terrance Howard came and used a computer and took that data and rendered it into 3D. And by doing that, discovered the negative spaces and came up with the idea, okay, well, this is where the magic happens, because the Platonic solids, which represent the physical world, there's nothing happening. They're all straight lines. I agree with them. Remember, fundamental tenet of the Archaix research is we're showing in calendrical systems the unfolding of human events, which happen in proportions of both pi and phi, proportions of 3.1416 and 1.618, and the magic number of pi times phi, the circle times the curve, 5.08. Over and over in my presentations, I show this is it. Nothing in linear mathematics makes sense when we're dealing with calendars, but all the unfolding of human events happen in patterns, beautiful patterns of pi and phi. So I get what he's talking about. We have structure in palindromes, but even palindromes are curved. So it's I'm really impressed with that. I don't know what the origin is. I believe it needs to be explored further. But he was certainly influenced. And this isn't just me telling you that. On the Joe Rogan's show, he specifically mentioned these men. So, yeah. So what we have to go to is, before we go to the next section, we're going to he really struggled. He really struggled when he was talking about truther concepts. He and Joe Rogan literally went on a little tangent, and he was no longer eloquent. He was no longer in command of the conversation. Let me tell you, when Terrance Howard changed, you can all go back and watch the video. When Terrance Howard changed and Joe Rogan started schooling him, I found the dynamic exchange very interesting. You guys know that I am a critic of Billy Carson. I believe he's Facebook educated because I know he is. I remember the years 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019 when he was building his empire. I remember when he had 24, 25 different Facebook groups, all of them Anunnaki related. I remember when he was reading everybody's posts, putting all these posts together and then rehashing them, repackaging them as his own. I remember when he was writing these books and he put his books read just like Facebook posts. He even uses sources. Links are his sources, not actual text. I've been through all the criticisms on Billy Carson. He's Facebook educated. And when it comes to Terrance Howard and it comes to the following topics I'm about to talk about, Terrance Howard is also Facebook educated. He has no knowledge whatsoever of some of the things he was trying to talk about. So he was really struggling, freestyling. So he made the claim that tribes in this world have traditions going back 200,000 years. It's false. It's patently untrue. There are no people existing today that have any stories that go back 200,000 years. He's not citing true anthropology. He's absolutely citing Zecharia Sitchin and Billy Carson. How do we know? Because later on he names them. Now, he cites the old myth of Noah's three sons being white, Asian, and black. This is an old Judeo-Christian myth. It's not an accurate interpretation. The same story is in Hesiod, the sons of Uranos. All three of them. This was an old Indo-Iranian tradition. All three sons of Uranos were Indo-Iranian, and they went in their three family groups separated the earth that they had conquered after a military campaign. It ended up in the story of Genesis as Noah, Anu, Nuah, Uranos. It's all the same person. It's and his three sons, and they had their families after that is separated. Remember, the story of Genesis is an oversimplification, a simple 8 people surviving on an ark. Even the rabbinical records, even the Talmud shows that there were fleets of survivors. Each ship of the fleets had many people and many animals. It just got oversimplified when the Jews wrote Genesis. Now, Terrance Howard knows nothing about pyramids. He is absolutely uneducated on the topic of pyramids. He said pyramids came from 100,000 to 200,000 years ago. Again, this is Billy Carson nonsense. Again, this is the old Anunnaki misinterpretation of the Shar that I have corrected in numerous times. So he says that 130,000 years of water damage has affected the Sphinx. Absolutely. Even Robert Schoch, the geologist who has published so much, whole entire books about the water damage on wouldn't even agree to that. Wouldn't even agree to a tenth of that. It's crazy. So, or a 100. Yeah, it's just crazy. So anyway, 130,000 years of water damage. This is also the subject matter of some of my videos where I show where that water damage came from when the Mediterranean had flooded. And that flooded area that created the delta had kept the Sphinx underwater, which was unprotected. The limestone softened. A lot of damage happened. He even tore off the dog Anubis' head and left a stump for a neck that they carved into what we have today. I've shown all the aerial footage, show exactly the geometry of the Sphinx and how the head is tiny and disproportionate from the rest of the body from that flood damage. And the reason the pyramids weren't damaged when they were underwater is because they were covered in 100-inch thick white limestone. They were protected. The Sphinx was not. Yeah. Robert Schoch's theory of 10,000 years of water damage from rain doesn't even make sense. What the ancient Egyptians called northern Egypt the raised land. That was the actual name of northern Egypt. And it was raised because the earthquake brought the whole thing up, created the Egyptian nine bows, the delta, revealed the pyramids, and brought the Sphinx up, minus its head. So, Terrance Howard knows nothing about Göbekli Tepe, but he tried to assert something, but Joe Rogan kind of corrected him. But then Joe Rogan also follows the BS narrative about Göbekli Tepe being purposely buried, and they're all ignoring the other 24 Tepe sites. Nobody purposely buried all those. It was a mud flood. It was a Phoenix phenomenon event. Stupid. They're not even that old. I've shown in my presentations where Göbekli Tepe has the same sigils and effigies that are found all over the 26th, 25th, and 24th century BC world. Yeah. It's nowhere near that old. It's just crazy. So he mentions in defense of his theory that hundreds of thousands of years ago people were here and all that, his limited Anunnaki Billy Carson version of history. Terrance Howard mentions the maps of Antarctica. He could have got that from Graham Hancock, but the maps of Antarctica show, man, Antarctica was ice free and all that. That had to have been 100,000 years ago. Again, incorrect. 13th, 14th, and 15th century maps that show geographic features in Antarctica, which have been verified by the U.S. Navy. I forgot what branch of the U.S. Navy had published that, but they looked at the old map and said, yeah, subsurface interface radar below the 2-mile ice cap shows these are where the valleys, these are where the lakes, and these are where the mountains are. Therefore, these old maps are pretty correct. Okay. It doesn't mean the maps are 100,000 years old. It means that the ice wasn't there recently. Only in Archaix. I don't know of anybody else who's provided a theory. Maybe they exist, maybe they don't. But in Archaix, I have shown an abundance of information for vapor canopy techniques and how increased volcanism creates vapor canopies. And when vapor canopies collapse, they create ice caps instantly. Yeah. Quick freezing and all that. The sky literally fractures like glass because the mesosphere breaks. Now, yeah, the whole Anunnaki, Terrance Howard cited the whole Anunnaki deal and the genetic differences between humans and simians only being 1.3% of the genome, and all that's good. He makes a big deal about us having 2 chromosomes less than a chimpanzee, but I don't know why. Because in nature, the most advanced forms are the most simplified. Nature simplifies things down to its lowest common denominators. It's like the law of conservation of energy. So more advanced forms, and by his own admission, rice has more chromosomes than humans. So it's not. It's the more primitive forms that have the most coding. So anyway, it's just the opposite. But none of that matters to me because I'm not trying to force fit a paradigm into a physical world. To me, everything is coding. He's talking about DNA. DNA is coding. So again, none of this offends my simulationist perspective. One of the things he had said was the Sumerians were given their numeric system. That's interesting. I'm not going to argue it. The Sumerian mathematics was sexagesimal. 60 seconds, 60 minutes being an hour, 24 hours being a day. Yeah, 8,000, I think it's 8,640 seconds being a day. It's the Sumerian sexagesimal system is the system that we have today. So, at least in our timekeeping systems. And he says it was passed down to the Sumerians from somebody else. Again, he was talking about the Anunnaki. Again, this is the Zechariah Sitchin version of crap history that's been passed on and infected the entire community. So he mentions the Dogon tribe. Again, Robert Temple's research has been assailed. It has been assaulted multiple times by researchers who've gone into Africa and they cannot verify anything the man has said about the Dogon, talking about aliens coming down, coming from the Sirius star system. The Nuamu race was visited and they gave all these advanced sciences and information to the ancient Africans. And the whole story is silly. It cannot be verified. And if the ancient Africans, sub-Saharan Africans literally had all this information, why didn't they do anything with it? They're still living today as they were living then. So, it's the Dogon. Robert Temple really effed a lot of people up with that. And there's been some good solid research since then of people going into Africa trying to confirm these stories, and they can't do it. Yeah, I have no respect for the Ancient Aliens franchise, guys, and everybody who's trying to support that paradigm. No, none. This is ridiculous. So, again, Terrance Howard, his education on these topics is 100% YouTube videos, Facebook, because he has nothing to bring to the table but just assertions. These aren't things. Even talking about any of these things literally lowered his. For those who are really paying attention to, his message. For the average Joe, they were probably impressed that he would know about all these things. But again, he's hitting all the triggers. He's saying everything to a certain community that community will accept. I'm talking about the alt media community, guys, what some of us call the truther community. Yeah, this man is painting amazing pictures to the alt community. The same community that has completely rejected Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now, we're going to move forward. A real shill move here, and I hate to use that word, but a real shill move here. Terrance Howard cited the Emerald Tablets as a source. Oh, man. I'm going to look at my chat section just to see what y'all say about that. Yeah, man. Thank you, Bart. Crazy. Emerald Tablets cited as a source. Couldn't believe it when I seen it. It's like, wow, man. You would give this genius, absolutely mind-bending presentation on the negative spaces. You didn't just intellectually engage those who could follow. You provided 3D imaging for us and 3D models to amplify exactly what it was. It was like the ultimate exegetical approach. It gave us everything we needed from a intellectual plane and the visual field, able to put this together to understand the negative spaces and what they mean, in juxtaposition to the Platonic solids and the exchange of information. It was compelling. You got an A from me from that presentation, an A. I'll hardly ever give A's out. So I would have expected to hear something like that from like Ken Wheeler. I was in his chat recently. I don't listen to him a lot, but when I'm busy, my hands, I'll turn on different people. You guys know sometimes I'll turn it on. Logan of Decode Your Reality, Autodidactic, Martin. Sometimes I don't engage in the chat, but I'm listening. The other day I was listening to Ken Wheeler, but it's it is amazing, guys. It's just I was very, very impressed. And then it's like you shit on me and talk about all these topics for which you know absolutely nothing about. So Terrance Howard, if you want to be educated on any of these things that you truly know nothing about, you're welcome to come on my channel on a live video, and I will educate you, brother. I will show you exactly why any contact and any crossover between you and Billy Carson is only going to bring you down. Yeah, you're putting your eggs in the wrong basket. I promise you that. Yeah, I have no problem having the man on my channel. We have disagreements. Yeah, there's things you might be a little too glib. You might be a little too slick in some aspects. You might be too good of an actor. So good, in fact, that you were hired for a role. That's on the table. Yeah, don't get offended at me, because this whole thing is an exploratory exercise. You guys have to see where it's going. So in the Joe Rogan podcast, in the 29th minute, it was during the Flower of Life demonstration with the Platonic solid overlay showing on the screen, when Joe Rogan asked, so why did they do it? Why did they base all our science off the Platonic solids, which are all based on lines, like you say, instead of all the curvature that you're showing me now? Joe Rogan's question was really interesting because the answer came a little too fast. Yeah. Go back and watch this video. Remember, they're entertaining truther concepts, and then they throw this in about the Platonic solids, and then Rogan asks a question. I don't know who's in Rogan's earphones, but he always wears them. I don't believe all his questions are his own. Not when you have 6 million people watching you within 48 hours. So I don't know who's in the headphones, but he asked the question, why did they do it? And the answer came back not only instantly, as if the question had been anticipated, but it came back with a look on Terrance's face as if he and Joe Rogan were sharing a secret. I'm not making this up. Go watch the video. It's in the 29th minute. Why did they do it? Because they believe the world is flat. It came out so fluid. And the look on his face, to me, was priceless when he was looking at Joe Rogan. Then it showed Joe Rogan's face. You look at it and tell me what you see. I'm not a flat earther, but I understand flat earth arguments, videos, commentary, books. A public opinion is so prolific in the community now that it's become a threat. Neil deGrasse Tyson is no longer effective. This was a dead giveaway as to the purpose, or one of the purposes, of the presentation. Flat Earth is absolutely polarizing. It has created division since it was entered into the public consciousness. It's created nothing but divisiveness and division. Yeah, I've told you guys many times, I'm not a flat earther, but I believe we exist on a flat plane. As a simulationist, I believe it's all a flat plane with curvature coded in. The entire sky is a stellosphere. You're not going to go up there. That's why in 1958 they had to fund that psyop called NASA. That's why now they have to replace Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's no longer doing his job. So one time we could overlook it, but it was said twice. The second time it was cleverly said. He said, "We know the world is round, but we're still using flat principles when we approach the study of it." Two incidents in that video that were red flags for me, and I'm not even a flat earther, but I see what's being communicated. Chris Bova, you need to watch some of my prior presentations because I dissect that mindset. Too many would have been in on it. No, it would have been very easy to perpetuate the NASA PSYOP. Very easy. As a matter of fact, the same PSYOPs are perpetuated on a daily basis everywhere. This is why it was kept so compartmentalized. Even 48 hours before the launch, even the astronauts thought they were going into space. They had trained for it. They had to be believable. They were doing interviews. They had to go through all the proper training. They did all that stuff. Yeah, there's only like 1 or 2% of the NASA employees that actually knew that this entire deal was a PSYOP. Yeah. If I have to still talk about that, you're just not looking for the information. It's all out there. So, years ago, Terrance Howard got in an argument at Oxford with some students. It wasn't kind of an argument. It was an exchange back and forth. The whole deal was about 1 times 1. So, Terrance Howard saying 1 times 1 equals 2. So, really interesting to see him engage. I watched the video where he was engaging with these Vincent Lerma, they were pissed. Everybody's seen the footage of the astronauts after that. These dudes were supposed to have come back from the moon. They're supposed to be heroes in the entire world. They've done something. God, not one smile. Every one of them looked fucked up. Yeah. So, one times 1 equals 2. I don't know why this guy is so fixed on that. But I'm going to have to weigh in on that. Because, guys, numbers are my thing. No, yeah, I've got a whole list on the occult, mystic, rabbinical, Kabbalic, associations, meanings of numbers and what they mean. So 1 times 1 equals 2 is dead wrong. And it's dead wrong for a much deeper meaning than the conventional math conveys. Numbers are concepts. The number 1 in the occult traditions is the all. It represents infinite potential. Now, infinite potential times infinite potential, 1 times 1. Infinite potential times infinite potential cannot suddenly descend to the restrictive first physical number of matter, 2. You cannot. The number 1 is limitless in potentia. And multiplying it against another infinitely potential thing does not amplify or increase the phenomenon of something because that's something that's more unlimited in its potential. It's impossible. We instead arrive at a complete restriction on potential into something definite, the number 2. This is a paradox, and it demonstrates again that we exist inside the photo-negative of a real reality. The single point of 1 possesses all the potential of our entire mathematics and thus cannot be compared to itself, to another. 1 stands alone. That's why it's 1. Any analysis comparing the 1 to itself or any other following numbers merely solidifies the structuring of the mathematical construct that we call reality. Remember, the all is present in its parts. One is the number of infinite potential. There cannot be another infinite potential in existence, or it would negate the fact that the first one was infinite. Infinite means it goes on forever. It's everywhere. It's all pervasive, omniscient. The one can never be multiplied against the one. It stands alone. So something that is infinite can never be compared to something else that is infinite because there is nothing to measure. The reason there is nothing to measure is because that which is infinite already includes the all of the entire structure. It's like DNA. One little piece has the programming for the whole. Take a cell out of a wolf, and we have the genome for the whole wolf. The all is always present in its parts. If the number one represents infinite potential, then it also contains the whole of all mathematics that are to follow. No other thing can also be infinite. This is why one can never be multiplied by one. This is also another reason I believe that we exist inside of a construct. Terrance Howard has made an error. 1 times 1 is not 2. Can't be. Just like this 1 cup of coffee. It's totally empty. And I can't take one empty cup of coffee times 1 empty cup of coffee and suddenly have a full cup of coffee. It's just not going to happen. Somebody can bring me some. Let's see. Check up my chat. I'm still good on the audio. And let's see. Thank you. All right. Yeah, the square root of 2 is 2. I get it. All right. Yeah, it's a real simple matter, guys. 2 is where all things begin. 1 is infinite potential. That's right. Man, it's so good. Wow, that was fast. It's good stuff. Got me a new shirt. Got my wolf shirt. Y'all like it? Pretty cool. Pretty cool shirt. So 3,000 in the chat. Thank you guys for listening. So this is the argument. Terrance Howard, listen, man. Even if Terrance Howard's listening to my video, I'm not denigrating you. Sure, you're intelligent as hell. The demonstration alone of the negative deal and how it lines up so perfectly with my own demonstration in 2 dimensions and showing the actual structuring of our reality and how it folds upon itself and breaks down in the number 2178, showing that our reality is the photo negative of a real arithmetic that is moored to something else, somewhere else. The experiments with what he did was showing the solids, which reveal the negative spaces, reminds me so much of a philosopher named Lyle Jacobs. I read his book. It's called The Discovery of Nothing. And the entire premise of the book is that there is nothing to fill without a previous empty. His book is genius because it shows exactly what Terrance Howard showed in the 3D model on Joe Rogan's podcast. Lyle Jacobs' whole book is about that. The negative spaces in reality is where all the magic happens, because without them, we would never have anything solidified to perceive. Lyle Jacobs, The Discovery of Nothing. I read that book over 12 years ago, and I would highly recommend it to anybody who wants to go deeper. People who like Liber Chaos, another one of my recommendations. If you like Tertium Organum, these very complex books, especially Paul LaViolette's Subquantum Kinetics. These books I stand by. I don't agree with everything, and nor am I qualified to. My own thought processes can't go as far as some of these men. But I do recognize in them out of the box thinkers that have brought more to the table than Neil deGrasse Tyson. So, we got to move on to the next section. Hey, Jahara, how you doing? Sorry about Music and Sky, girl. I know you wanted to come down there with Big John. Sucks. You can thank Amanda Vollmer for that. I'm not going to be quiet about it. Everybody trying to protect her. Let's see. Shiva, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Girlfriend's like a photo negative of a real mathematic. That's terrible. Woohoo! Thank you, Amanda. Pamela Swan, boy, you made me take that wrench. Yes, Lyle Jacobson. That's his name, Lyle Jacobson. Thank you. Runaway Train. Excellent book. Excellent book, guys. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not for everybody. If you didn't like Ishak Bentov, those of you who buy all the books that I recommend, if you didn't like Ishak Bentov, you're not going to like Lyle Jacobson. But if you do, I promise you, it's worth a read. A totally different way of looking at reality. And this is what Terrance Howard did. He literally showed us the negative spaces. What he didn't do is give us a scientific philosophy for it. He gave us a model, but he didn't give us a scientific philosophy as to why the negative spaces are operable, why they're so important for us to recognize. That information you're going to find in Lyle Jacobson, The Discovery of Nothing. So we need to go through some red flags before we go deeper into Terrance Howard. Now, I've told you the good things. I told you things that I was really impressed with. I told you some things that really impresses the truther community. It really impresses the populace, things that he did. I told you about some things that were kind of curious. I told you about what I was super impressed with, and I corrected his error. He is not right. 1 times 1 is not 2. It can't be. But we're going to get to some red flags now. Here are some things that just jumped out at me and had my spidey senses going, despite his obvious intelligence, despite his ability to convey his information into a easily digestible format. That takes intelligence, guys. Doesn't matter if he doesn't have all the vernacular. It doesn't matter if he mispronounces some words like I do. It doesn't matter if he's, just not, he's not real eloquent about these things. He still communicated very well. Despite all that, we have some red flags to discuss. So let's get in it. First red flag was his first memory. Come on, man. You're never going to get me to agree to ever believe you. I don't care. Never going to get me to believe that 6 months in your mother's womb, you woke up and realized you were in your mother's womb. And that you saw something moving that later you realized was your hand. And then you went back to sleep in your mother's womb, your first memory. And that you had these deep thoughts about the structuring of reality, and that you wanted to, because this is what you said later in the show, 2 hours later. That was the beginning of the show. 2 hours later, Joe Rogan did ask you, hey man, so you had all these in the womb? You had all these from my earliest inception. Yeah, these are the thoughts that were on me. I wanted to know how everything worked. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm sorry, Terrance Howard, intelligent you are. I just can't buy that one. Just can't. Now, You remember being born. You told Joe Rogan this. You remember being born and you remember being circumcised. That's very interesting. I don't. I just don't remember these things. I don't have a memory. I don't believe I have any memories until maybe 3 years old. But I don't know. That's me. That's me. Maybe some of you guys claim to have memories like that. I don't know. I'm not buying it. I'm just being honest. I'm not biting. So, nice little story you told about how you use light and music to communicate to your unborn in your wife's body and all that. You know what? Cool story. Cool story. I'm not even going to say that I don't believe it. I mean, it very well could have been true. I don't know. You're 5 years old and you have a dream where you encounter a being. Now, this being talks to you and you ask this being for a wish. You didn't say genie, but you did describe one. So you asked this being for a wish at 5 years old. And your wish is to be granted the knowledge of how everything works. At 5 years old, you're curious. You want to know how everything works. Okay, I can buy that. So at 5 years old, though, in this dream with this being, you are astonished because the shapes that are handed to you by this genie are not the Platonic solids. There's something else. Okay, now I have a problem. I did not have a problem with you having a dream at 5 years old. I don't have a problem with you remembering a dream at 5 years old. I don't have a problem with you remembering that a genie gave you a wish and you asked for a wish in a dream at 5 years old. But I do have a problem with, I can't process how a 5-year-old would be astonished that shapes that were being given to him in a dream were not the Platonic solids. Why the hell at 5 years old would you have even understood the concept of the 5 Platonic solids? No, I'm not. Now I'm not biting. Now you're a storyteller. So this gave all the this really leaned into child prodigy syndrome. And I wasn't expecting that from first going into this video, but you started the video like this, and it's kind of weird. Kind of weird. Now, of course, this could be Jason just barking up a tree. The pearl white hoodie in the studio really gave him the look of a guru, a monkish look. And I'm wondering if it was staged that way. Because, when they do these podcasts, they got a makeup crew comes in, they get all right. And I don't know, man. I don't know. But maybe I'm making too much of it. Maybe I am. But Terrance Howard specifically dropped in one of his sentences the phrase powers of inception. He was granted the powers of inception. You guys have seen the movie Inception, the ability to manipulate and change the trajectory of your dreams. So this is what he's referring to. So I'm listening to all this and I'm seeing the stage set for it's like a messianic complex, the chosen one, delusions of grandeur. So not attractive. It's not attractive at all. If you'd have stuck to just the intellectualism, just stuck to all that, it would have been all right. It wasn't attractive. I don't know. How do y'all feel? I'm going to look at the chat real quick. How do y'all feel about those first 4 or 5 minutes where he was talking about all these things just rapidly? And I thought, for me, it almost set the tone for the whole video. I'm glad I continued listening so I could get that gem about the negative spaces. But yeah, man, it was, we're talking about we're talking about the Jay Miller. It's all true. How do you know it's true? Were you there were you there inside of his head at 5 years old? I mean, come on, guys. Yeah, man. Yeah, the first 5 months came off very creepy to me. Very creepy. Yeah, a lot of people turned it off. A lot of people sent me messages talking about, man, I couldn't get through the first 5 minutes. I went ahead and watched the whole 3 hours. But still, Jay Miller, he's the truth. Jay Miller's a fan right here. Jay Miller's not going to back down. You must be in his set. That's okay. We're not done. We're not done. He may not be a bad guy at all. There ain't nothing bad with a storyteller. But I'm seeing a lot of Billy Carson in him. And if he wants to be taken seriously by the truther community, shit, he better amend his trajectory, because we already know where that road's going. Yeah. That empire there is growing faster than he's able to defend it. So at 5 years old, no, excuse me, I'm sorry, not 5. So all this happened at 5 years old. So we go next into his dialogue. You know, Joe Rogan's good at drawing things out. This is what he does. So he says that in his first year of chemical engineering, he gets into it with his professor about the periodic table. He doesn't like the periodic table. It's set up wrong. He wants to, and he realizes that he wants to redesign the periodic table. He wants to spend the next 40 years. He said 40 years, guys. Wants to spend the next 40 years redesigning the periodic table. Very interesting that he would say that when later on he admits that he studied under someone who had already done just that. So in his first year of chemical engineering, as we're going to see, is kind of deceptive, because it was the only year he ever had of chemical engineering. We have another Billy Carson story here concerning education and concerning making claims to higher education that are not true. Yeah, you got to look a little bit deeper, guys. I'm going to reveal it here, but there's no bachelor's here. There's no master's here. There's no PhD. There's no doctorate here. None of that. And it doesn't make Terrance Howard a bad fellow. It doesn't. But we've been led to believe in this massive education. So let's look at it and see what he's talking about. So four or five times, or 3 or 4 times in the dialogue with Joe Rogan, he says over and over about his time at the University of Science and Philosophy. That sounds real impressive. Real impressive. So it's nagging in at the back of my mind. I heard him say it a second time, and again, I refuse the tug. I'm too busy listening to what he's saying. He said it a third time, and I'm like, man, why is this tug happening? I'll just stop the video. It's because my subconscious was screaming at me. I know all about the University of Science and Philosophy. They sent me core materials when I was in prison. I studied all those materials. So I looked them up online, and my suspicion was correct. The University of Science and Philosophy is not a real university. It's not a real college. It's not accredited. You can't get a bachelor's and master's. No other institutions. It's just like the L. Ron Hubbard deal, where all these actors become cultists and stuff and all that. This is what was going on with the L. Ron Hubbard deal. You all know the story of Tom Cruise and stuff like that. It's just became a real weirdo behind this L. Ron Hubbard stuff. Well, the University of Science and Philosophy is set up like that. Although it's not producing weirdos. Not yet, I don't think. But it's a real institution with real courses. But it's no different than Archaix Academy. It's no different than Archaix Academy. You're going to learn some profound things, but you can't take your bachelor's or master's that you get there to anywhere else in the world to be recognized. It's not going to happen. It's like Billy Carson claiming he's MIT educated. He took a mail-in course or something, or paid $250 for a questionnaire or something to fill it out. I mean, all these big universities have those little side gigs, but it doesn't mean you went to that university. Yeah, it's crazy. So another red flag. A real red flag to me was he cites Neil deGrasse Tyson as an authority. It kind of shocked me there. So yeah, just looking at my chat real quick. So citing Neil deGrasse Tyson as an authority, that's a shill move. We all know it's a shill move. We know that dude's an actor, just like the astronauts. Why would you give the astronauts stars on Hollywood Boulevard? Why? Hollywood Boulevard is for actors, right? So he also said something that Billy Carson is famous for saying. It's not Billy Carson saying. He got it from the Hermetic literature, like Corpus Hermeticum, Kybalion, stuff like that. As above, so below. Billy Carson says it all the time. Well, so did Terrance Howard. It wasn't obvious at first that Terrance Howard listens to Billy Carson. It wasn't obvious until he and Joe Rogan went through all the truther concepts, and it was all Billy Carson's versions, all his BS, too scared to debate versions of comic history. I was like, wow, this dude is not, he's not read up on any of these topics. He literally watched some Billy Carson videos and then gets on Joe Rogan with 6 million views and parrots this material as if it's fact. Yeah, Billy Carson's going to take you down, Mr. Howard. It's going to take you down. Yeah, that was crazy. And Terrance Howard, if you do end up watching our Archaix analysis of your video, like I said, I respect your intelligence. You definitely showed me that you possess it. And I'm very impressed with the negative deal. And I would like to explore that more. But your association to Billy Carson is comical. And believe me, I would be very embarrassed to cite a man who absolutely refuses to defend the integrity of his research that he has publicly posted. It is the epitome of cowardice. I'm never going to let that go. So, Mr. Howard, one thing that you should have probably backed up on and never said is that you are in possession now of the grand unified field equation. All right. 1 times 1. Your analysis of 1 times 1 shows that you are not in possession of the grand unified field equation. What you demonstrated was absolute genius. But any extrapolations beyond that is still subject to scrutiny. Your work is just beginning, Mr. Howard. Yeah, what you did on Joe Rogan was not the end of anything. Yeah, you're going to be up under way more scrutiny now. So now I have a criminal history. I have gone into depth about my criminal history. Some of you think it's far worse than it actually was. Don't really know the full story. And one of these days, I'm hoping somebody, does a full documentary on it so they can say things that I really can't. But Terrance Howard has a criminal history too. Funny about that, Billy Carson has a criminal history too. Look at all the common denominators. It's very interesting. So, accused of domestic violence against his partner, he admitted to in Rolling Stone magazine. It's not something that was just an accusation. He said he was wrong. He said he did it. He said he regretted it. He said his wife just got real aggressive with him about all kinds of things, man, up in his face, and he slapped the hell out of her in front of his kids, and he felt bad about it. Okay, not an isolated incident. There are distinguishing marks here. I mean, I was 17, I was a kid. But you know what? I'm not going to sit here and defend myself against that. I did it. I went to prison. I've already served my time 100%. Done. But how old were you when you did that? How old was Billy Carson when he did what he did in Florida? You understand where I'm going with this? I have been dismissed a lot by a lot of people because of a mistaken childhood. But we have more incidents, Mr. Howard. This is going to come bite you on the ass. Sooner or later, the more popular you get, the more people were going to dig into this. Wasn't just one domestic violence. Then you had 2 restraining orders filed against you by a different partner. One of them who showed up with a black eye. I get it. She could have put makeup on there. I could be barking up a tree, but this is in the public record. A 4th episode involves a third person, a Continental Airlines flight attendant you assaulted. Again, things could have been very different. You were an adult all 4 of these incidents, or 3 of these incidents. I don't know if both restraining orders were necessary. I'm not judging here, but you got to toe the line too. I've had to defend myself on numerous podcasts and for 4.5 years as I've become more and more public. Billy Carson doesn't. He just, does what money helps cover it all up. I get it. Did money help you cover it all up? You were a multimillionaire before you'd already done 30 movies. So I don't know. But these are red flags. Doesn't mean you're a bad fella. You could have had some little episodes. But we all know what money and attorneys can do, when you get caught doing stuff. So 2013. On 2013, here's another red flag. Terrance Howard was on the Jimmy Kimmel show, Jimmy Kimmel Live in 2013. He specifically told the public he had earned a PhD degree in chemical engineering from South Carolina State University. Unfortunately, fact checkers investigated that, and they found out that Terrance Howard had never attended that university, ever. What had happened is that he was invited to speak in 2012 at a commencement ceremony at that same university. And because he gave a speech, they gave him an honorary degree, which is called a Doctorate of Humane Letters. I can get those. There's many different universities and degrees I can go to and give speeches, and I can get all these things for my wall too. There's all kinds of ways to get honorary degrees. But that's not what he said. He said he got a PhD in, chemical engineering. That wasn't true. It's a little bitty fib, but is it? You're a public figure. You got a lot of accomplishments. The reason these are red flags for me are not because of the lie, not because you got caught in a lie. They're red flags for me because it seems to be when major psyops are unfolding, there's always a back history given to the people who are now performing the public duty for which whatever intelligence agency assigned them. So if somebody digs enough, they'll see, oh, he does have chemical engineering knowledge, or he does have oratory expertise training, or whatever. It's very difficult for me to wrap my mind around somebody who's done 65, 66 movies, knowing what I know about cinema and how taxing it is, learning your lines, doing all that stuff. And then over 60 episodes on television, Broadway, music videos. You got a very, very busy life to have suddenly become so scientific. I could be barking up a tree. I could be absolutely wrong about you. And if I am, I'll apologize. I am. So, Mr. Terrance Howard makes a big deal about 97 patents. Other people claim that there's not that many patents at all. And yet, there's others who have been digging deep into these patent claims and finding out, anybody can file a patent. Guys, I can file a patent. I can come up with a unique idea, put it all on paper, man, but I can file a patent. Anybody can file patents if you're willing to pay for them. Yeah. That doesn't mean he hasn't filed legitimate patents about some legitimate things. I just don't know. I know Owen Benjamin has been going deep off into this patent claim and been finding all these patents and basically showing that they're worthless. Nobody's using any of this stuff. And the patents are designed for a world for which we don't even live in. And that the mechanics of our world aren't even operable in the way that these patents are describing these technologies to be. So anybody can file patents, guys. It doesn't mean anything. But so far, Terrance Howard has shown zero proof that any companies have even used a single one of his patents. There's no proof. They've looked into it, but he even admits, to Joe Rogan that, oh, they don't understand how it works. They can read the patents, they can see the patents, but they don't really understand how it works. So they're never really going to get the whole deal. Okay, well, if you didn't convey in precise terms on a patent exactly how something is going to go, it probably doesn't work anyway. It is conceptual. The patent office is absolutely packed full of conceptual pieces. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's not evidence. It's not evidence. It's just not evidence. It's not evidence of this great work or this new paradigm that you bring to the table. It's not. Remember, even Billy Carson has all these claims about this super new propulsion system. He's taking public funds. He's got people donating to his cause. Billy Carson set up a company, man, to where it's going to be some space technologies. Man, such absolute BS. It's all BS. They're never going to develop a single piece of technology. It's all BS. Yeah, I'm sick of hearing about that dude's scams. It's ridiculous. But yeah, man, it's the whole Terrance Howard deal. The more we look at it, we're seeing a side-by-side blueprint for Billy Carson. And that's a shame because I hear genuine intelligence. I hear genuine intelligence in Terrance Howard until he starts talking about things that Billy Carson's familiar with. In Billy Carson, I do hear genuine intelligence, but it comes from a different source. He's not a reader. Billy Carson is not the type of researcher I am who has actually absorbed thousands of writings, texts, done cross-referencing, looked at bibliographies, chased source materials down, hand wrote all these things into the thousands of pages, which Jamie, my moderator, Jamie Robbins can verify, and you guys can from pictures. People have visited me and held my research notes in their hands. It shocked them how many folders it fills up, how many boxes. Yeah, guys. But Billy Carson has a genius for absorbing information that he sees, like in Facebook posts. He listens to different videos. He can memorize and process that information and regurgitate it in a Billy Carson package. And he's very good at that. And if Billy Carson's listening to me, more props to you, man. You have a gift. You do have a gift. But when it comes to chronology, you're no match for me and never will be. It's too bad we couldn't have built a friendship based off our pasts and the very fact that we could have brought many things uniquely to the table. It's too bad we got this start like this, but you know what? I'm committed. I'm all in. So now there is an interesting thing about the Joe Rogan the Joe Rogan the whole speech between Joe Rogan and Terrance Howard. My God, this chat section is amazing. I can't keep up with it. Can't even keep up with it. All right. I will say this. In a intelligent conversation between two people as public as Joe Rogan and as admittedly intelligent as Terrance Howard, it did not escape me that neither one of these men, when talking about extraterrestrial theory, ancient aliens type stuff, not one of these men brought to the table the Fermi paradox. The Fermi paradox should be in every ancient aliens conversation if it's going to be mentioned. It is unfair not to mention it. Fermi paradox is evidence of simulation theory. because astrophysicists have already determined how many habitable worlds are really out there based off this mathematical structuring of the known luminaries that we have magnified and we have counted by computer. In extrapolating even this limited area of the universe that we can see, the galaxy that we can see, they already know that there's hundreds of thousands of extraterrestrial advanced civilizations out there according to their mathematical models based off uniformitarian principles. Joe Rogan is a uniformitarian. We're going to get to that in a minute. And so is Terrance Howard. Therefore, to ignore the Fermi paradox, to me, is censorship. You deliberately didn't mention this because it completely nullifies ancient aliens theory. The Fermi paradox holds that there's no way that hundreds of thousands of advanced alien civilizations have not already been here and should be here all the time. We should see evidence of them everywhere all the time. But we don't. In simulation theory, this is answered for because we're in a closed system, we're in a construct, and the sky is a stellosphere. And the behavior of NASA proves this every month. So anyway, didn't mention the Fermi paradox. And that right there was a red flag for me when I was listening to them. It was crazy. So I'm going to show you this book. Share my screen. Dale Pond, The Physics of Love. It is a fantastic book. It is also a book that Terrance Howard must have studied in order to say the things he said on Joe Rogan. It's not only that. It contains John Keely's work. It contains Walter Russell's work. The second book, Dale Pond has his, what is the name of that book? Physics, not Physics of Love. Can't even remember. Let me show you these books. Seeing is believing. Share my screen, entire screen. Let's get this done. Let me find these books. Physics of Love. It's by Dale Pond. He edited it. He wrote a whole bunch of it, but he cites whole passages from Edgar Cayce, from John Keely, from Nikola Tesla, and man, I even hate to say this, from Rudolf Steiner. But it is what it is. So, Physics of Love, I read when I was in prison. I took a lot of notes out of this book. I still have the handwritten notes today from this book and from the next one I'm about to show you. The Physics of Love needs to be on any truther's shelf if you really want to understand the operations of the construct. This is amazing material. This is Terrance Howard material right here. How do I know? Because he said it. He cited Dale Pond. When he did, my feelers were going up because I've read Dale Pond. Dale Pond himself sent me that book when I was in prison many, many years ago, The Physics of Love. So, yeah, book is really good. Got to read it. But so is this one. Universal Laws Never Before Revealed. Keely's Secrets. Understanding and Using the Science of Sympathetic Vibration. Again, by Dale Pond, John Keely, Nikola Tesla, Edgar Cayce, and 7 others. Again, these 2 books belong in your library. You can't read them cover to cover. They're not even designed that way. Read one chapter because it's information overload. Read one chapter, put it away, go on with your life. Read something else for a while. Come back to it after you've processed the information. This is Terrance Howard material. I knew when I heard him speaking that I've heard these things before. Like Billy Carson, they're just repackaged. But this is what they're talking. This is exactly the model that Terrance Howard is following. These books are put out by the men who founded the University of Science and Philosophy that Terrance Howard in the Joe Rogan podcast said he went to. Yeah. Full circle, guys. I wasn't making anything up. He just happened to cite a researcher and a university for which I have a history with. So that was pretty interesting. That was pretty awesome how that happened. All right. Let me see if I'm still sharing my screen. No, I'm not. Still tech retarded, no matter how good I get at this. So as I'm thinking of all these things, I'm thinking of all the, the red flags and all that. I'm thinking of, I just keep looking at this guy. It's like, man, why are you wearing that hood up like Yoda? Yeah, man, got this shirt with alchemical, with the physics arithmetic. And yeah, man, I'm just looking at him like, damn, man, what was this the effect? Is this what you wanted 10 million people to see? These are awesome books, man. John Keeley on the self-perpetual motors and all that. Man, all this stuff. It's amazing. And yes, the new periodic table is not Terrance Howard, but Terrance Howard cited Walter Russell. Can't take that from him. He cited Walter Russell 100%. He gave credit where credit was due. And that right there is a plus for me. You guys already know that. But Terrance Howard is also doing what Walter Russell and Dale Pond, wanted, what Nikola Tesla wanted. He's putting the ether back in science. This is why Terrance Howard is not going to be accepted by today's scientific community. But he can be a huge figurehead in the alt media community. And once that happens, he can steer the alt media community in any direction his handlers want it to go. Again, I could just be a dog barking up the wrong tree. To Terrance and the rest of the scientific world, the periodic table are the building blocks of a physical reality. This is my problem with Terrance Howard now. I'm a simulationist. The periodic table is not the mystery. It's still to him. There's no difference between Terrance Howard's view of the periodic table elements and the scientific uniformitarian view. He's brought a new way of looking at the construct. Yeah, he never said simulation theory, but he's talking about the construct. The difference between the negative spaces and the Platonic solids of our physical world. That's construct speech. He doesn't have to say simulation theory. But he is promoting a physical existence. From the perspective of simulation theory, the periodic table represents coding of a 3D simulated environment. That's the difference here. John Keeley, Walter Russell, Dale Pond, Terrance Howard have the benefit. Terrance Howard has the benefit of all their research. Nikola Tesla, he's got the benefit of all their research. Those two books sum up the research of so many predecessors. Terrance Howard has the benefit of all that by getting those two books. More power to him. But he also had the benefit of having the money to put together this amazing presentation, to have computer programmers put this together and be able to 3D print all these shapes to show what he's talking about. Yeah, Dale Pond never had that. Even the University of Science and Philosophy is small. Walter Russell never had money. Nikola Tesla died broke. John Keeley, wasn't he put in prison? Yeah, guys, this Terrance Howard comes on the coattails of all these scientific great minds, repackages all their stuff, has the money to show it. He might even have Dale Pond's blessing. I don't know. He's the only one left alive. So if he's still alive, I don't know anymore. So, like I said, I could be barking up the wrong tree, guys. I could be absolutely wrong. But this is what it looks like to me. Yeah. Terrance Howard wasn't 5 years old thinking all these concepts up, for which took 40 something years. And now all of a sudden he's sharing it with he's been sharing since 2015, trying to, and then in pieces and parts. 2019, he tried to make a comeback. Then COVID shut the world down. He just didn't resurface till now. And when he resurfaced, he exploded. And that too is a huge red flag. Anybody who explodes like this, remember, guys, you got to remember, I've got 715 something videos and another 120 videos on Archaix TV, and I have never had a viral video. And yet I've got comment sections absolutely packed with people telling me that I'm blowing their minds because they're seeing a whole new way of looking at reality. Not one viral video. Yeah, not complaining. I'm asserting a fact as to how the controllers work. So, yeah, anybody wants a good laugh about the patents and all that, go check out Owen Benjamin. He's going to have you laughing about that stuff. So now, a statement he made too was kind of triggered me. Terrance Howard said that the ancients did not know about curvature. That's total crap. That's absolute and total crap. Yeah, this version of the ancient world being the knowledge of stick figures and that everything was straight lines, total crap. So both pi and phi were well known and demonstrated in ancient Sumerian, Egyptian, and Greek knowledge. Pi and phi are both mathematical expressions of curvature. I mean, even the very people that I've been calling out for debate. Yeah, I'll give you an example. Randall Carson, a geologist, right? I believe he's a geologist. Okay, I really don't have any problems with Randall Carson. As a matter of fact, some of his presentations are great. Yeah. My only issue with Randall Carlson is that he supports Graham Hancock in the dating of Atlantis. When it comes to the younger Dryas, Randall Carlson can have all that. I don't care about it. There's nothing to argue. It's not my expertise. Atlantis, I'm an expert at, and I'm willing to debate anybody in the world who's qualified concerning the dating of Atlantis and the environmental and socio-political conditions that were going on in the rest of the Mediterranean during the Atlantis story, because Plato covers all that. Yeah, there's over 14 or 15 different ways to date Atlantis using Plato's narrative. Randall Carlson, the Atlantis deal is the only problem we have. Everything else the man talks about, man, we could drink a beer together and do a bunch of shows. But when it comes to Graham Hancock, we got problems. Go Beckley Tepe. We got problems with the astrotheology, zodiac dating, dating the zodiac itself, precession. Yeah, we got some issues, but especially the Atlantis narrative. But even Graham Hancock has some genius stuff out there. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Graham Hancock has some fascinating material, but just enough I disagree with to where I just, you know what, I'm done. Can't do it. Billy Carson's another story. You know, Atlantis and the Anunnaki shard dating. Those are the two issues. Other things, Billy Carson's got some really good stuff. He's got some really good common sense stuff. He's got, you know what, man, I give him his props. But there's just two issues that I'm not going to yield on ever. I don't have to. I've already published the data sets. And not one single person has ever come forth and tried to overturn them because it can't. Facts are facts. But yeah, I mean, it's just, the reason I'm mentioning all of them, like Jimmy Corsetti, you know, I've challenged him to a debate on the Atlantis dating. That's okay. He doesn't want to do it. That's fine. He didn't have to. Matthew LaCroix, you know, he's up Billy Carson's butt all the time. And I get it. You don't want to hurt your pocketbook. I get it. They're not the only ones. But even all these men that I have challenged to debates publicly and by emails, even these men know the truth. They've all published pretty fascinating materials that the ancient world was very aware of 1.618 curve, called phi, the golden mean, the golden proportion. All these men have shown many examples of pi being featured in ancient architecture, in religious writings and concepts. So Terrance Howard has a habit now. We've just from one video with Joe Rogan, I've seen he's very qualified to talk about the material that he's learned from Dale Pond, John Keeley, and Walter Russell. He's really good. He's really good at giving dissertations on that. But when he steps out of his field of expertise, he sounds like an idiot, because that's an untrue statement. The flower of life is the oldest symbol known to man. He said that. It's totally untrue. Yeah, it's totally untrue. We got pictograms. We got logographic text. We got pictograms. We got pictographs, hieroglyphs that are all far older than the flower of life. It's a very old religious symbol, but it's nowhere near as old as many other symbols that have been published. Hell, Hittite is older than that. Yeah. So he makes some of these statements that are just not true. But so check my chat real quick, and we're gonna get to some meat and potatoes. 2 hours, man. I'm not impressed with Paul Wallace. I see somebody named him. I'm not impressed. He's Ancient Aliens. He's just Ancient Aliens. Yeah. Hey, none of those Ancient Aliens guys have met me halfway. Called out so many of them. I've called out the whole franchise. Yeah. Hell, I've the air was taken out of my tires by just, my old hero. I put on a pedestal. I had to go ahead and tear that temple down. David Hatcher Childress. You know what I mean? It's just all his books were so good at avoiding that Ancient Aliens narrative, man. But now that he's a part of the franchise, man. You know what? Sold your soul. Sold your soul. So, yeah, man. I was even entertaining having David Hatcher Childress on my channel, man. Come talk about your life. Come talk about all that. But then I can't do it because I'm not going to be able to be quiet about this hypocrisy about Ancient Aliens, because I know that David Hatcher Childress does not believe in extraterrestrials and does not believe in all that shit. I've read all his books. I know. Man's got a great head on his shoulders. Ancient Aliens is a paycheck. Yeah, man, I'm sorry, guys. I might have been that poor 17-year-old bastard that went to prison for 26 years for participating in something stupid, but I'm also a moralist. That's who I am. At 50 years old, I'm a moralist. And it's caused me so many problems in life, because this ethical fabric that runs through my being always has me making the right decision, even when it's wrong for me, over and over and over. That's what happens. It's the story of my life. And I just can't do it. Can't do it. All right, man. Terrance Howard. Why? Why did he blow up? Why Joe Rogan have him on his show? Joe Rogan's an interesting guy. I think he works for an intelligence agency, or at least they give him scripts. I don't believe that he's a free thinker. I don't believe any of that. I remember a clip from way in the past where he's basically saying it on his show. NSA, CIA, whatever y'all want. Y'all pay me shit. I'll do what you want. Yeah, he did that publicly. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But Joe Rogan has shown exactly by the type of guest that he has. He had Graham Hancock on there multiple times. Yeah, I'm going to tell you guys now, Joe Rogan's people have heard of me from multiple different sources and people. Email campaigns, all kinds of stuff. Absolute silence. Yeah, I'd love to go on Joe Rogan. Not to talk to Joe Rogan, though, but for Joe Rogan to be an impartial mediator while I completely show the public the difference between intelligence and idiocy when I debate Graham Hancock. That's what I want to do. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but yeah, that's okay. But that's what I want to do. I don't want to be a guest on Joe Rogan to talk to him. I want to be a guest on Joe Rogan to debate somebody who thinks they can prove to me ancient aliens exist. To debate somebody who wants to try and convince me that Atlantis was 9,600 years BC. That's what I want to do. Yeah. But other than that, to talk to Joe Rogan, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. I don't need anybody handing me a script telling me what I can't talk about. So, Terrance Howard, what's going on here? Because everything he promotes, none of it is offensive to NASA. Process this. So, he mentions, it shocked me when he mentioned it, the hairs raised on my head. I thought he was going to reveal something deep. But he mentioned the Michelson-Morley experiment, 1887. A lot of you don't know about that experiment, but there are many of you who do, especially those of you who come out of the flat earth community. Now, the Michelson-Morley experiment was a real scientific experiment, 1887, and in 1887, it proves something that today it did not prove. That's what's really interesting about redactionism. That's really what's really interesting about how the scientific world can change the outcome of an experiment through the sieve called publishing and peer review. You see, the Michelson-Morley experiment actually proved that our world does not move. It does not move. So, Terrance Howard is claiming that they were wrong because they used an outdated model of Newtonian science. But Howard needs them to be wrong because Terrance's model requires that our world is in a solar system. Do you see where this is going? Terrance Howard is still promoting a paradigm that involves a solar system and all this all physical space. So the Michelson-Morley experiment results showed that the speed of light was constant and it did not change against the movement of the Earth. This is how the output of that experiment in 1887 has been repackaged for readers today. However, if the Earth doesn't move at all and all the movement is only in the sky, then the experiment actually worked. So we have a problem because Terrance Howard says that Einstein took into consideration the Michelson-Morley, the Michelson, is it Morelli or Morley experiment when he came up in 1905 with his general theory of relativity. So I'm gonna have to call bullshit on that, and I'm gonna have to show it to you. I can't just tell it to you. I gotta show it to you. So I'm just gonna have to show it. I'm gonna share my screen. I got a screenshot. I need to show. All right, so sharing my screen. We're gonna have to look at this real quick. All right, a lot of people make this mistake, thinking that Einstein came up with the general theory of relativity, and that part of his reasoning was because that the Michelson-Morley experiment proved that the speed of light was constant. But that's not what it proved. It proved that our world does not move. Here is an article by R. Shankland published in 1963. The following expert from his interview with Einstein in 1950. When I asked him how he had learned of the Michelson-Morley experiment, he told me, that's Einstein, he told me that he had become aware of it through writings of H.A. Lawrence, but only after 1905 had it come to his attention. Otherwise, he said, I would have mentioned it in my paper. Indeed, Einstein's 1905 paper contains no mention of the Michelson experiment or references to the Lorentz papers. So, There you have it, guys. That's not Jason telling you that. Terrance Howard fibbed on that show. Maybe it was a mistake, but it's not true that the Michelson-Morley experiment, that the actual real scientific result of that experiment was that the speed of light was stable. That's not it. The actual thing was that going by the speed of light in two different measurements, one forward and one backward, against the backdrop of the stars as our world supposedly moves around the sun, the scientists were shocked by the fact that they detected no movement whatsoever. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that's neither here nor there, guys. It's just another very interesting aside. Yeah, it's just a very interesting aside. Doesn't prove anything. It just means he made a mistake about his historical narrative as to the constant that is known as the speed of light. No big deal. All right. Let's see here. Now, here's some other things that he said. Any talk of the sun and earth drifting apart, the sun and earth drifting apart 0.06 inches a year is total psyop. To even say that publicly, no one can measure at that, it's minutia. No one can measure. What, the sun is supposed to be 333,000 miles in diameter? The earth is 24,000 miles in circumference? And yet they're 93 million miles apart, and yet there is always some variance and deviation. The chromosphere is not a perfect sphere. The chromosphere also moves. There's no way to ever determine that the earth is drifting 0.06 inches a year. Total psyop, total NASA bullshit. No one can measure that. But saying such a measurement implies the sun is 93 million miles away. It implies that NASA is giving us legitimate data. Terrance Howard is supporting NASA. Claiming that every solar system is moving away from each other at 1.5 centimeters a year is another shill tell. Come on, guys. Who can measure that? It implies that we can measure this, but we can't. It also implies that the Big Bang was true, which is a total psyop fairy tale. No one can measure that. All these different galaxies are moving 1.5 centimeters. Come on, stop it. Stop it. You'll lose IQ points thinking like that. But this is what Terrance Howard is basically asking us to believe. It is 100% NASA data. Terrance claims Earth came out of the sun and equally claims the journey was very slow. But Earth would have been burnt back up if the journey was slow, because anything in the proximity of the sun is literally liquefied and then turned into a gas state and is reabsorbed back into the mass. Yeah, that model doesn't work. I don't know where he got that from. But again, it implies that the sun is this super giant star out here and that we're 93 million miles away from it right now. So what Terrance Howard never quotes and never explains is the Teich's-Bode law. I've talked about it on my channel. The mathematical distribution of the planets from the surface of the sun, the pattern is perfect. From Mercury to the surface of the sun times pi is basically where you find Venus. Venus times pi is exactly where you find the asteroid belt. Mars. Mars times pi from the surface of the sun is where you find the asteroid belt. The asteroid belt times pi from the surface of the sun is where you find Jupiter and then Saturn. But yet Neptune and Uranus are too far away and they switch orbits. Now, this is the model we're given. What planet did I leave out? I left Earth out. Why? Because it does not fit the Teich's-Bode law. Earth is tucked in between orbits of Venus and Mars and mathematically is incorrect. The Teich's-Bode law is evidence of another plane of ecliptic. If the sky is truly simulating a real solar system that is somewhere else, That somewhere else is another plane of ecliptic where another solar system is literally colliding into ours. This is the model that's offered in Chronicon. It is the origin of all these ancient calendars, when these celestial bodies appeared here in this solar system from the Nemesis system, which is local but cannot be seen because it's a frozen star. Not that it's cold, but that its light has folded back in on itself. It's become a dark star. This is the Nemesis. This is the whole Nemesis concept. But the Titius-Bode law is absolutely, completely ignored by Terrance Howard, just like the Fermi paradox is ignored. Remember, guys, in Archaix, the entire Archaix chronological history of the world and the paradigm that goes with it is all about every single piece of information must fit somewhere. This is what I'm always telling you guys this. We cannot practice exclusions, but we have evidence right here of two major exclusions that were practiced in the Joe Rogan interview, not mentioning the Fermi paradox and totally ignoring the Titius-Bode law. Yeah, it's forgivable, but I gotta call it when I see it. So Terrance Howard, so Terrance Howard speaks of billions and trillions of years in the promotion of the uniformitarian model. Everything out of his mouth is uniformitarian. So there is a lot of focus in his dialogue with Joe Rogan on different events being hundreds of millions and billions, and even says trillions a couple times of years of planetary movements. No. Asteroid belt was a planet, but it's an old idea. It's not Terrance Howard's. It's an old idea that's found in many books. And it was a planet, but that it was a planet that was inhabited and then that it was destroyed because the planet was actually a bubble and they built a collider like a Hadron Collider and they activated it and it popped the bubble and the planet blew up. Oh, that's total imagination. I don't know where he got that. Probably Billy Carson. But he didn't get it from an ancient text. He didn't get any of that from any of that. So the James Webb telescope that he cites, it's still only a discussion over optics. I don't have a problem with optics. These are just visuals of the construct. I've never seen evidence that the sky is anything other than a stellosphere. It is a multi-tiered hologram. It mimics parallax, it mimics distance, and anytime the Phoenix phenomenon or other sky phenomena are about to erupt, all the little variable stars, which change their magnitudes and they're all red, start getting bright and dim, like 10,000 little projectors that are actually creating the very phenomena that we experience in the sky. So that's what I see. I don't see anything else. So any theory Terrance has about space, planets, and stars is still just a theory based off optics. This changes nothing in my assertion that the stellosphere is entirely simulated. So there's no conflict here, really. Now, here's an interesting thing. The beef between Neil deGrasse Tyson and Terrance Howard, because there's a beef. They have a history. This is a beef between actors. Process that for a minute. The public has been made known about Terrance Howard and what he brings to the table. Neil deGrasse Tyson, everybody knows him. He's been promoted everywhere. I've never heard anything really intelligent come out of his mouth. But I've heard all the standard models. He's really good at memorizing all the standard models and explaining that and totally dismissing any out-of-the-box thinker. But this contention between the two, it's a contention between two actors. And the reason is because the controllers know that the public is quickly awakening to the fact that Neil deGrasse Tyson is now perceived widely to be a fraud. Oh yeah, the whole truther community, man, laughs at that dude. It's like, man, come on, man, stop. So it's time to replace him with somebody who's more amenable, who's more eloquent, who's more believable. That's what I see. It may not be Terrance Howard. It could be somebody else we haven't seen yet. But that's the beauty of a psyop. You're never going to be able to predict all the moving parts, because whatever parts you're perceiving are only setting up moves that are going to be made and executed in the future. It's only in retrospect that we actually see how things went down, like the 2020 COVID narrative, and then followed by the Vax program. In retrospect, we see how it all unfolded. So, sending men to Venus and Mars, this is a discussion. This is on the table with Terrance Howard, but it's a discussion that promotes NASA deceptions. The entire model of the solar system is exactly that. It's just a model, guys. That's all it is. It's all optics and projections. We have zero evidence of anything above us other than a stellosphere. I got whole videos on this. The whole conversation of planetary mechanics Terrance carried on with is merely a reinforcement of the NASA version of reality. Yeah. This is a different version. This is just a different version of Ben Davidson. He's got a great personality. Ben Davidson's all that. But you know what? To me, he reeks of intelligence operative. 100%. 100% of his data, NASA, the Weather Channel. Yeah, man, all this fear-mongering about all the sun, the solar storms and all this. Yeah, the level of our technology now is to mimic anything that we can blame on the sun. There's nothing that we cannot blame the sun on now. The level of our technology is to that state. Yeah, we're at the point now where NASA can feed the news any images it wants to, and people online are going to take those images and think they're real and say, hey man, this is what's really happening and stuff. And then when this whole area goes down and this whole area gets windswept and tornadoes hit downtown Houston and take out cemeteries and all this bullshit, yeah, no evidence that any of this is happening from the sun. Our own technologies can do this now. Easily. Yeah, dust veils and miniature vapor canopies and aurora borealis. All this can be done with technology. It takes one jet to go near the poles and just circle around and release all kinds of metals and chemicals, and they can create all kinds of phenomena. Yeah, that's where we're at in our technology now. So Terrance Howard would do well, instead of only coming up with a very interesting model, which it is very, I'm not taking anything from it. It is very compelling, very interesting about the negative space. And that's where all the magnetism and electricity happens. That's very interesting to me. However, what about Paul LaViolette? Not a single mention about subquantum kinetics. Why have you not at least shown how the model of our existence, the construct, according to subquantum kinetics, could be utilized? Why ignore it? It's viable in this conversation. So these are little things that just jump out at me when I hear these things. So I'm not always going to be critical. Let's talk about the good. The good. My overall impression, shit. He certainly is knowledgeable about what he talks about. He certainly believes what he's saying. He is very well studied on this topic. It's when he crosses over into other areas that he sounds like a buffoon. Yeah, anytime he tries to even entertain anything that he probably learned from watching Billy Carson videos, he then shows he's got an 8th grade education or understanding of those concepts. But when he sticks to what he knows, I'm going to tell you, the man, he nailed it. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I don't find any flaws in it, and I'm going to be the first to admit that I'm unqualified to even assess that data. Just unqualified. So he's made some statements that I'm going to have to say earned my respect. Despite my criticisms, guys, I'm a multifaceted being. I'm going to give you the business the way I perceive it in any way that I perceive it. I'm going to tell you when I feel somebody's lying. I'm going to tell you when I feel like they're a POS. I'm going to tell you when I feel they've done something honorable. If it might be slick, if I have a suspicion, you guys know I don't have filters. I'm always going to tell you what I think and what I believe. But I'm going to have to say the man really earned my respect. He specifically said, have the universities look at what I'm doing. Man, that's a cry. That's a cry for help. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. He's literally asking to be critiqued. You guys know something about that. Have the universities just look at what I'm doing. 100% earn my respect from that. Absolutely. Again, a little bit later, he says, nobody even wants to have a conversation. Man, much respect. Got my respect on that one too. He's literally stressed out that in the scientific communities, nobody even wants to have a conversation with him about it. Got my respect, man. Absolutely. But the ultimate respect that he gets from me, where despite my criticisms, despite my breakdown of some of the things I disagree with, you know what? He has an invitation to come on my channel and chat about his life and about all these things. Amend my opinion. I've changed my mind before, but he has that because of one single thing that he did. On Joe Rogan, he literally said that he is willing to debate any scientists anywhere about his model. That's enough said. That's enough said. I have my suspicions. I believe you might be being pushed a little too hard and for reasons you may not even know yet, because that's the beauty of a psyop. Many participants in a psyop don't even know that they're being used as the mule. And they turn into the rider only by agreement later on when they're confronted with the fact that they are already in or in too deep. So, got my respect 100%, guys. The Archaix stamp of approval. The man is willing to debate anyone in scientist about his model. Therefore, I can't call him a shill on that. None of that. Doesn't mean I don't have more to say about him, but it means he's commanded my respect. Joe Rogan, on the other hand, is disappointment. But we're not done with this yet. We're not done. Not done. A few items about Joe Rogan, then we'll continue with Terrance real quick. But Joe Rogan's just disappointment to me. I used to kind of look up to him, but you know what? Joe Rogan asserts that we sent drones to other planets. Total NASA crap. Joe Rogan doubling down on the human brain, saying human brain size has doubled over the past 2 million years. It's not even debatable. He said it just like that. It's not even debatable. Man, your brain size may have doubled in the last 2 million years. These are all uniformitarian concepts. So Rogan cites the uniformitarian age of the universe being 13.7 billion years old. Okay, how do you know? How does NASA know? The number is specifically created. 13.7 is just another reference to 137. Fine structure constant. Yeah, man. Joe Rogan claims Anunnaki made humans to mine gold, and it makes sense to him to protect the atmosphere, and that's how gold became valuable to humans. It's all Zecharia Sitchin's theory. To Joe Rogan's credit, he cited Sitchin. But it's such a childish bullshit theory. It's easy to dissect. There were no ancient aliens. It wasn't Anunnaki. It was Homo Annuna. Totally different. Mr. Rogan, if you want to be educated on the real history of the Anunnaki, Homo Annuna, you might want to watch Archaix. So, we're going to sum this up. You guys already heard of it. You guys already know the confidence game. You already know. You know what that means. Psyops are not always about suckering in people into a false narrative. Psyops can be about other things. They can also be performed for the sole reason of creating more division in communities so that no one community would ever be able to become very populous. Russell Brand secured the public trust of millions of people by talking against the establishment. Now, what is he doing? He's towing the party line. What do I mean? 3.5 years ago, and every 6 months since then, I have repeatedly reminded you guys of my predictions of the rise of a Christian Reich that will be used to foment World War III against Islam. Yeah. All of a sudden, all these politicians are going Catholic, going Christian. Russell Brand promoting Christianity like it's nothing. Why? Because he was the Pied Piper, Mad Hatter role in the 2012 Olympic ceremony on the Truther bus, guiding the free thinkers in circles. Guiding them in circles. A whole bus full of free thinkers. Just guiding them in circles as he's playing his music, wearing his little uniform. Yeah. All of that was scripted. Remember when four women came up talking about, accused him of aggravated sexual assault and all that? Yeah, they were in the 2012 Olympics as well. It showed 4 women scantily clad coming over there teasing him, doing all kinds of things. And then they all pointed their fingers at him and they ran off, and they were replaced by 4 female dancers that were all dressed as police officers. What happened? Russell Brand went to jail. He got arrested, got out. He got out. It was all scripted in 2012. Russell Brand has lived the role. He has become a multimillionaire for toting the party line. What is the party line now? Russell Brand, we need you to promote Christianity. We need you to convert to Catholicism. He did it. Who else did it? Candace Owens did it. She's towing the party line. Told you the Christian Reich is serious, guys. This is serious shit. You're going to see more and more and more evidence of the rise of Christianity and no-hide type laws being enforced in the public. Hell, in Texas, they took Pornhub down. I know that pissed a lot of people off. But Russell Brand, Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, these are a few examples of where the same method is employed. People who are allowed to get big, they get populous, they get their communities, and then basically their communities get hijacked. This is how the gatekeepers are created. Joe Rogan did not begin as a gatekeeper, but many tens of thousands of comments and people across all the spectrum, the full spectrum of the truther channels, you can see everybody pretty much agrees Joe Rogan is a captured operation. So this is a tried and true method. Am I saying Terrance Howard willingly is allowing himself to be? No, I'm not. I'm saying that in a psyop, you don't have to be a willing participant. You're just helped. And I'm thinking that 10 million people seeing your interview across 5 major platforms in less than 48 hours is a lot of help. It's a lot of help. So look at Cat Williams telling the truth about actors and music artists. You know what I mean? Then he goes off talking about ancient aliens in Atlantis like he's an authority. Yeah. Really shocked me when I heard it when the interviewer asked him, yeah, man, you're a pretty knowledgeable guy. You got to still, oh, man, it almost sounded like he was trying to act like me. Oh, man, I've all my life, since I was a little kid, I've always read a lot of books. Yeah, but I've never heard Cat Williams cite an author. But yeah, it's all these little things. You got to pay attention to these details, and you see, wow, man, these narrative spinners around here. I like Cat Williams. He's pretty funny. But then again, Cat Williams is on a mission. Yeah, who's protecting him? Because he doesn't let a lot of shit out the bag. Was it by design? Were those people he exposed no longer beneficial to the controllers? Or was he allowed to expose them because the controllers needed to remind them that you ain't shit and you will toe the party line? Yeah. Was he used just to scare them? Yeah. Even Donald Trump. I've been very critical of Donald Trump. You guys know I voted for him in 2020 and then turned around and I was pissed when I finally figured out that he's the leader of the Patriot Pacification Program. Yeah, one of his greatest agents is Juan O'Savin, 100%. Yeah, man. Just the other day, he released a post talking about the Reich, Christian Reich. I'm not making that up. How many of you in the comment section saw that before he received so much blowback, he had to take the tweet down? How many of you guys saw that? Mention it in the comments. If you saw it in the comments, say so. So many people contacted me and said, hey, man, you're not going to believe what Trump said. And then he had to take it down because so many people were complaining about him using the word Reich. Here's another red flag I saw with Terrance. Just something I saw, guys. It may not mean anything. Jason could be just barking up a tree. But he said, I'm being shadow banned. What? 10 million people have seen you in the last 48 hours since you've been on Joe Rogan, or 72 hours since you've been on Joe Rogan. Spread across 5 channels that I counted. What? I'm being shadow banned. Crazy. Again, I'm being shadow banned. But even when you're a guest on a small channel, that small channel gets 200,000 views. Yeah, Archaix is pretty well established and pretty well known. But it took me almost 2 years to get a single video to get 100,000 views. Yeah, that was with my buddy Joel. You know him as Toltec Shaman, Perceiver. It's crazy, guys. So the controllers want Terrance Howard to be heard by everyone. So the question to the community is why? Why? I think I've answered it a little bit. One is that he supports NASA. His model still promotes a physical reality, even though it's very interesting. So the power of the trust phase is that the objective is not made known at this time. The first objective is to get a large portion of the online participants to listen and to trust him. That's what we're doing right now. A whole bunch of people listen to him and they're in awe. They're like, oh my God. And they're going to fill up my comment sections with hate and vitriol, talking about Archaix. Jason, you're a hater. You're a hater. You prejudiced. That's what they're going to say. So once this trust is established, then the gatekeeping can begin, the steering of the narratives, the misdirection. Sometimes the entire objective is to keep the masses from turning, or basically to turning into lesser known voices that are actually telling real truths. Think about that. Sometimes a psyop is just necessary to keep people from listening to those who are telling them accurate data. The trust phase. The trust phase is exactly the part Terrance Howard is playing right now, whether or not Terrance Howard even knows it. Whether or not. So we're going to sum up this video, but we're not finished. We're not finished with Terrance Howard, guys. There is a shadow cast from the light we have yet to explore, guys. Mr. Howard himself has revealed in the past something very alarming about himself, about the very avatar, the body he has, and what he has done with it in the past. Excuse me. Oh, I need coffee. Guys, Terrance Howard revealed something in the past about what he does with the avatar. It's going to shock you. So this video is carried on long enough, but on David Nino Rodriguez's show on Sunday night, David and I are going to talk about it. So you're going to hear more from David's perspective, and I'm even going to bring more to the table that I didn't reveal in this video, but I'm also going to shock you with some video footage of him talking about what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that Mr. Howard has self-confessed a certain ability. It is an ancient practice, and it changes the entire dynamic. That's my presentation, guys. I didn't mean it to go that long. I'm sorry. But we're not done. This is basically not an intro, but you can consider this part 1, because part 2 is going to get real dramatic. And it's going to be on David Nino Rodriguez's show. Matter of fact, he's in Austin right now. He's pretty close to me. I may just take a drive over there and have dinner with him tomorrow. But because he's pretty close to me right now. He traveled 6 or 7 hours to Austin from El Paso, and Austin's pretty close to me. So yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, let's see. 2 hours and 37 minutes, 3,000 people in the chat. Monica Farrow is a banger. Thank you. Yeah, man, we're not done. We are not done. This is a very fascinating revelation that we're going to get into, guys. That's right. I love you guys. I'm going to go ahead and hit this outro. Well, actually, the outro is going to be the intro. I switched them up today. That's what it's all about.